it's Rahar. Welcome back to my channel. So I've had a long morning already. I helped my mom move a bunch of furniture, including moving my bed to my little sister, and I have a bigger bed now. I have a bigger bed, and it feels weird, but nice at the same time, so yay. Okay, so last night I did a trick-or-treat-thon update, and now I'm going to do a review on the latest book I finished. And this is my second time finishing it, but I didn't have a book the first time I finished it, so I never made a review, and this is only my second time rereading it anyways, so there's a lot I didn't remember. On my trick-or-treat-thon update, I mentioned that I rated, have I rated it? I think I did. I didn't have Goodreads yet, but I think I already rated it. 5 out of 5 stars. And on my trick-or-treat-thon update, I mentioned that it was pretty much amazing. There's just a couple things that got on my nerves, which was Frankie and Apple got on my nerves. I do not like them at all. I have more issues with Apple than Frankie. Yeah, there wasn't. That thing is back. Oh well, I don't care. Frankie and Apple I have issues with. Apple a little bit more because Apple like pretends to be the sweet, innocent person who cares about everyone when really, in reality, she's a selfish little brat and I want to murder her. Frankie, on the other hand, knows she's not perfect, which makes her a little bit more tolerable, even though I still can't stand her. She's one of my least favorite characters, to be honest, in Monster High. Apple's like my least favorite character in Ever After High, so yeah, there's that. But my only other issue is the fact that the Monster High part of the story follows the reboot and not the original. I mean, the reboot isn't terrible. At least the first one wasn't. The second one, I think the only good thing about the second one was that I got more into Twyla, because I love Twyla. But maybe it's not a bad thing that it follows the reboot, because honestly I don't know how they would do it with the original, because in the reboot they have the Epilogue and that skull key that Dracula wears around her neck. I don't know how they would have done this book without those. Maybe that's why they chose to do the reboot instead, because they wanted to include the Epilogue. But there's several maps throughout the book. Let me find one. Of course I couldn't find one. Come on, there's several. I have to find one here sooner or later, right? Apparently not. But like, every time they look at the Epilogue, every time they show a Epilogue on here, it changes. Like at first it just showed Monster High and Normie High, which is in their universe, the Monster universe. And then once they started getting closer to figuring out what this Ever After High means, it showed Ever After High, then eventually showed Wonderland High, and then it showed like a faded thing in between, which was supposed to be the Legend of Shadow High, or it's supposed to be Shadow High. So yeah, and I can't find any of them now, of course, because. But anyways, yeah, Brooke's mom, if you watch Ever After High, you know Brooke is this young narrator who's just starting out, and her parents, who are the other narrators who narrated before her, are trying to stop the characters from discovering Shadow High, and the evil queen has escaped and finds herself into Monster High, while Dracula and Frankie finds themselves into Ever After High. And people start freaking out, thinking monsters, so Graham pretty much kidnaps them and locks them up to keep a lid on this whole monster ordeal. And Apple and Maddie's watching them when Raven shows up, and they're all like, monsters aren't real, fairy tales aren't real. Like, seriously, like, the Ever After High people are like, but monsters aren't real, you can't be a vampire, you can't be created in a lab. I don't know what else to call Frankie, like, let's be real. But then, And then the monster people were like, but fairy tales aren't real. You know, you can't be an actual princess like that. This makes any sense. So yeah. But then they got past that eventually and got to talking. Frankie and Apple had a lot of issues, you know, because Apple was insistent that monsters weren't real. Frankie was insistent that fairy tales weren't real. And but Dracula and Raven were able to move past that a little further, and they started talking and had a lot of fun, and they became friends real quick, which made both Frankie and Apple jealous. But yeah. But the narrators had this plot device to try to like get everyone to like stop talking about it, like to get them like all distracted that they forget what they're gonna say, so they don't discover Shadow High. It failed, and Brooke kept narrating despite her parents' wishes. You know, I never counted this as part of the Ever After High series, but I think it's supposed to be. I mean, they even mentioned the Jabberwocky and stuff, which was in the 3rd book. Honestly, I think this is supposed to be part of the series. I mean, it even says, don't miss the others in paperback. See? And it's from the same authors. So, yeah. I think I don't count it as part of the series because it also has to do with Monster High, not just Ever After High. But, oh well. So, yeah, anyways, the evil queen ends up in the monster world and is trying to get everyone to like bow down to her, and they're like, no, we don't do it like that. And none of her spells she casts will work on the monsters because I think they're supposed to be like immune to her magic because like they're monsters and it doesn't work like that. But Monica, if you watch the Monster High reboot, you know Monica is this one person who's like an enemy of Draculaura's and everyone else's, but a little bit more Draculaura's. So she and hers, she was intrigued by the evil queen, so they decided to work together to figure out what the Shadow High business is. And yeah, so because it's Monica, so yeah. But then they wake up the next morning, the monsters and Ever After people, and notice Maddie's missing, and there's like this fog everywhere, and it's like, and then if they walk too far they just fall off like a cliff or whatnot, so it didn't make any sense. So Dracula flew as a bat and found a bridge, so they managed to, so the 4 of them decided to go on a journey to because they discovered that it was Raven's mom, the evil queen, that's doing this, and because I think Kitty saw everything, she was like, and then she's like zombies, and then she was trying to remember what they were called, because I think she heard Monica call them zomboys, and then Dracula figured out, she was like, zomboys, crap, Monica. And yeah, so they go on a journey to find Shadow High and the evil queen, Monica, zomboys, and Maddie. So and it's hard to see through this fog, and then they find out that the fog's called the margins, and in the margins your magic doesn't work, but what works? Yeah, magic doesn't work, but in the fog, whatever you think comes alive, and a few of them thought some scary things, so they had to defeat those stuff. You know, like Raven had to defeat a fake mother. Who did Dracula have to defeat? Apple had to defeat her insecurities. I forgot what Frankie and Dracula had to defeat. That makes me sad. I don't think Frankie had to defeat anything because she was taking the first watch. She was awake at that time. Anyways, yeah, so they had to be careful not to think of anything too horrific unless they needed to for like an escape or something. But yeah, at one point they had to defeat these zomboys. When they got to this like big castle or what, I think it's supposed to be a castle, I don't know. But Apple and Frankie stayed behind to defeat the zomboys, while Dracula and Raven went up to the castle to talk to her, Raven's mom. And there was Maddie. She was talking to the narrators, and the evil queen wanted to get rid of the narrator so she could because she felt like the narrators were like taking control and they don't have and they can't, and she wanted to like get rid of them. Even though it's not narrators do. I mean, there was one narrator, Misdirection, who thought narrators should have more power and started making her characters do what she wanted. So she had to be defeated. That was a long time ago. But yeah. But the Evil Queen did a spell to bring to find Shadow High, and it started bringing all the lands closer. And then the Evil Queen found out that the power of Shadow High is not what she thought it was, and it did not bring her immense power like she had once hoped. So yeah, that's lots of fun. But they freed Maddie, and then Apple and Frankie were still finding zomboids while Raven confronted her mother with Draculaura, and yeah. So, but then this lava started coming because the lands are coming together. So the lava wanted to destroy the lands. Like they had this whole chisel and stuff that locked away Shadow High and kept all the lands separate, because all the lands used to be one land. You know, like Monster High, Ever After High, and Wonderland High, Normie High, Shadow High used to all be in like the same world. But then with all the trouble that came from Shadow High, honestly, they could make a second book. I wonder if they ever did, and I just don't know about it. Especially from the epilogue. I'll explain the epilogue when I get there. I'm not quite there yet. So yeah. And it started unmaking things. And whenever it unmakes something, it turns like, okay, example. Let's say the lava hits a door and it unmakes it, and the door goes away, and then all that's left is the letters telling you that it used to be a door, D-O-O-R. So yeah, it was unmaking things basically. And so the Evil Queen had to help them put the chisel back and lock it all away and whatnot. But the Misdirection cut in because she's still around, but she wasn't exactly herself. It was like her memory, I guess. That's kind of how they explained it. And she was just made up of words, like her spirit or something was there, but not her necessarily. And she had them all like locked up, and like lava was unmaking things, and they couldn't get up because she had the power to like control what they were doing. Except for Maddie, she couldn't control Maddie. Maddie was still doing stuff, and it frustrated Misdirection. But then let me find the scene. And Brooke became a part of the story, and her parents had a narrator, and that has never been happened before. So she figured out that the only thing more powerful than Misdirection is the readers, us, you know, the people who's reading the story, because they're the ones that make the words come alive. So she has to go to the fourth wall, and like she basically talks to us, basically, and then we get to decide what happens. There's like a few options of what we want to happen. If Raven is the key, go to page 272. If Frankie is the key, go to page 273. If Maddie is the key, go to page 274. And I wanted to do Maddie because she's my favorite out of 3. And if Raven would be my second choice, obviously not Maddie, or not Frankie. I don't know what I'm talking about apparently. So Maddie 274. And then that's where that's where it explains what Maddie does to stop her. And then it says, if Maddie invites Misdirection to join the Tea Party, go to page 279. If Maddie tries to narrate the story herself, go to page 281. That's the one I did. So 281. And then Maddie starts narrating. And when Maddie stops narrating, it says go to page 294. And then here it has this whole lot thing. And then it says at the bottom says they need you. Write or imagine what the characters do to get free of Misdirection so they can head towards the volcano. So basically you can have a say in the story, which, you know, I'm gonna have a little mixed feelings about that, you know, but at the same time I'm like, that's kind of cool because like you never get a say in what happens, you know. And I decided to write about Draculaura because she's my favorite out of the group, and she there wasn't an option for her, sadly. So I'm gonna tell you what I wrote down, because the first time I read this I didn't decide to write anything down, but this time I did. I'm gonna tell you because if you ever buy this book or something, you're not gonna have my answer, so I'm just gonna read you what I wrote. It says, Draculaura's wings started flapping, and she smiled as she flew out of Raven's arms. Misdirection couldn't seem to control her. She sent out energy waves as Misdirection flew several feet away. She slowly stood back up and glared at the bats. Stop and sit down, Misdirection ordered. Draculaura sent out more energy waves, and Misdirection screamed as she disappeared into nothing. Draculaura transformed back into her vampire form. She couldn't believe she just did that. I didn't know you were that powerful, Frankie commented. Neither did I, Draculaura agreed. Raven high-fived her new friend, and Apple was impressed. Maddie cheered as she did cartwheels. Even the evil queen looked depressed. We should probably get going, Draculaura suggested. Good idea, Raven agreed. Draculaura began running to the volcano as everyone was following her. So yeah, and then it goes back to the actual story in the next chapter. Let's see. And they managed to get to the volcano, Raven and Draculaura is the ones that went to get through the volcano to try and put the chisel back. Draculaura got passed out when fire got really close to her, or lava, whatever. And then Frankie used her arm to help put the chisel, but then her hand fell in the lava, and yeah, so that sucked. Actually, it was kind of funny because I don't like Frankie, but that's another story. But then the evil queen took the chisel from Raven because she figured out that the last person that did this disappeared and nothing was ever, she was never heard of again. And this is proof that she actually does care about Raven, because she is the one that did it, put the chisel back, and then she disappeared, and Raven didn't know how to feel about that. So the lanes were starting to become separate again. And like Monster High was really close, and so was Ever After High, and they both had to get there really fast. So they all said goodbye to their new monster / fairy tale friends, and then Raven and Apple went one way while Draculaura and Frankie went another, and Maddie went with Raven and Apple, obviously. So yeah, and then it showed like what happened when Raven and Apple got back. Mr. Grant was not exactly thrilled, obviously, but then Raven and Apple decided to check the mirror prison, hack into it to see, because they wanted to be sure. And then when they did, Evil Queen was sitting there, so yeah, she's fine. She's just back in her mirror prison. And then Draculaura and Frankie got back, and no one knew that what was going on. No one knew that anything happened, that they almost all just got destroyed. So they did their class presentation because they had to redo it from the beginning of the book. And yeah, so and then comes the epilogue. I'll read you the epilogue. It says, the noises outside Frankie's bedroom window usually help her sleep. Frogs croaking, witches crackling, wolves howling, and the wet slurping footfalls of unseen things all combine to make a soothing backdrop to her rest. But not tonight. Tonight the frogs are too loud, the witches too annoying, and the wolves too shrill. The slow tread of unseen things is nice, but it isn't enough to drown out everything else. The electric spinning compass is on the nightstand, a memento from an adventure that is already fading from memory. The compass is useless now, of course. Raven's enchantment has worn off, and the chisel that was in it now far away, safe in a socket at Shadow High. Frankie opens Apple's backpack. Beside the epilogue and the skeleton, there are a few other Apple items: a new notebook full of crisp white paper, a sweater in case of chill, a hat in case of sun, her outdoors wear tiara, and a packet of unsalted nuts. On a log, Frankie sticks the tiara in the compass and flips on the power switch. It whirs the electric motor working just as it should. No magic now, but the soft hum of a machine is soothing, and it drowns out the louder croaks and crackles, so she leaves it on. And after Frankie drifts to sleep, sometime between 9 steps and its shallow, a spark grows around the tiara. A soft green pulses from the compass, and if someone were watching, they see the glow from the barest hint of an arrow pointing west. See, so they left it off for a potential another book, second book, or I don't know, because if it's part of the series of 4, then this would be the 5th, which means they made it all for Patrol 6. But I don't know. I still can kind of consider it like by itself because it does have to do with Monster High and Ever After High, not just Ever After High. But that's just me. So yeah. Oh, found one of the maps. Yeah, I can show you. See, here's the map. See, this one, it shows Monster High and Normie High here, and then over here it shows Ever After High and Wonderland High, and then right here in the middle, it's very faded out, but it's a school and it shows Shadow High. I mean, in this book, it isn't what you think it would be, because I always thought it'd be like them going to Shadow High and stuff, and they were never actually at Shadow High. So maybe if they do make a second book, I don't know when this book was made, but if they do make another one, then maybe it could be about them actually going to Shadow High, you know, finding out exactly what Shadow High is and what it means. I'm gonna look up like when this book was made, because I'm curious. Okay, so the legend of Shadow High. See, it was made in 2017, so that was 3 years ago. I mean, technically they could still make a second book. Just know nothing about a second book here though. So they never did make it, even though they still should. Okay, well, I guess hopefully they should make a second book, because I'm kind of want it to continue now. I want to see what happens next. I mean, I have a couple books that kind of left off with the potential of another one. I don't remember if the Ever After High one did, but Monster High Ghoul Friends, that left off with the potential of a 5th book. And I'm still bitter that they never made one, and I hope someday they do, because I would love to see that. So yeah, that's fun. So yeah, this was all in all a great book, and it kind of tested what boundaries by doing stuff that no other book actually has ever done, at least that I know of. And I don't know, it was kind of intriguing, and I liked it, you know, especially the Draculaura parts, because I love Draculaura, and I love Maddie. And I like Raven a lot, so yeah. I could have done without all the Frankie and Apple crap, but other than that, all in all, a great book, and it's definitely, if you're a Monster High fan and an Ever After High fan, you should definitely give this a check, because I think you'll like it. So yeah, so please like and subscribe and comment your thoughts on this book, or if you've read it, if you haven't, if you want to, and yes, and we'll chat below, so I'll talk to you guys later.